It is 3/29 of 2015. We're going to take a look at the concept of space for Robert Jensen and his doctrine of creation. And basically he's going to tell us that space equals consciousness of spirit. It's a very brief section, just 44 to 54, right after his discussion of time. We'll take a look at the three moments. They reflect the trimutual space within the Father. So we'll look at God the Father as the making of space, God the Son as the opening up of that space, and God the Spirit as the actualization of the creative word in space. So moment one, God the Father. God's thought includes his internal distension of expanding the ousia trimutual space in order to make room for his material determination to create. We talked about that last lesson about the internal distension. This inaugurates an eschatological process of created intentionality becoming actual as being eventually. Therefore, we understand, first of all, that the Father is the making of this space, this creative space, the expansion, the distension, which means expansion, internal expansion, the expansion of that ousia trimutual space in order to make room to create. Now, the second moment of the Son, within the realm of finitude, space equals the horizon of the present tense. So within this spread out distension that is now incarnate, eschatological possibilities become available to us now in the present. There is the possibility of God's intended relational history, which is spiritually present in our finite history, is that incarnate distension, and it is pointed to by the sign of the Christ event. Remember that Jesus called himself the sign when he was speaking to the Jewish critics. And he said, "There is none more is given to you other than the sign of Jonah, and a greater than Jonah is with you now." He referred to himself as the sign. So that is the sign of the Christ event that points to this spread out distension of God's intended relational history. Space here, infinitude, equals God's distension as incarnate temporal distension. And as the opening of otherness between himself and us, the space equals our opportunity for recognizing his opening form. The opening form is also the enabling form where we can work toward God's own beyond and his own future, which includes his creation. Now, the realm of spirit is where all this activity takes place. In the realm of spirit, space needs to become consciousness. God's distension as open form needs to enclose our own and others' internally constructed extension of horizon. Remember, under the concept of time, we talked about this, but we all construct these hopeful extensions of horizon for our own personal history of finitude, and these are nested within the eternal distension that is opened up in front of us as the spiritual reality that is hidden in our finite reality. Consciousness is enabled by the structuring power of this trimutual distension that is spread out before us. So within this realm, initially we are members of God's opening accommodation. Remember, Jensen called that opening of space God's accommodation to open space for us. Well, initially in this opening accommodation within the trimutual space, we are separate. We are not yet in absolute correspondence with God. We are to be understood as the concept of separateness, but we do strive for correspondence by sharing in God consciousness. And this is a possibility because of the Son's acceptance of being that is other than God. The existence that is other than God is absolutely accepted by the Son in his obedience and by his taking on of the title of Son of Man. Now, from God's perspective, our own being named and promised, logomena, we discussed this last lesson, we are naked and open to his sight from our being named and promised. That concept of logomena that Robert Jensen introduced for systematic theology. This open space between God and ourselves allows for our participation in the energia and the grace of the divine, within the energia and the grace of the divine. And ultimately, we will reach that consciousness as a correspondence within the harmony of divine spatial ordination. We will reach consciousness of the harmony of divine spatial ordination, which of course we will be gathered up within. It will include his creatures. So it is just a little bit of additional information from what we've already discussed under the concept of time in the last lesson. But I like the fact that here he kind of took a little time to summarize that position. So we get a little bit better look. So initially God the Father makes space within the trimutual ousia space within him, where he communes with the Son and the Spirit. Well, he makes room for his determinate material creation within himself also. But the Son opens up the way. The Son is a sign that points to the content of this distension of relatedness that the Father wants to intend for his creation. The Christ event is the sign that points to the content of that intention. So Christ becomes the opening form, the holding open of the opening form, is a better way to put it. Jensen said that Christ is the holding open of the opening form. And then finally, in the realm of spirit, where we actually do participate, we participate in this incarnate distension, trimutual distension that is spread out before us. And we keep participating until we gain greater and greater and greater correspondence. And eventually we will reach a consciousness of the harmony of divine spatial ordination. So, very excellent work again. I just love the last lesson. This is really a continuation of the last lesson, but it wraps it up for us by taking us to that point where we reach the trimutual